I first noticed during my third day in the hospital. There's something about being confined to a bed that makes you hyper-aware of everyone who walks through your door. But Dr. James Mitchell was different from the start. Maybe it was the way he actually looked me in the eyes when he spoke, not just at the chart in his hands. Or perhaps it was how he remembered my name, Alex, without checking my wristband every time. Small mercies become monumental when you're stuck in a hospital gown that refuses to close properly in the back. I hadn't planned on spending my summer in Memorial Hospital recovering from a cycling accident that left me with a broken leg, 2 fractured ribs, and what the nurses diplomatically called extensive soft tissue damage. Before the accident, I was an architectural designer with deadlines and client meetings. Now, my biggest accomplishment was making it to the bathroom without calling for assistance. James, Dr. Mitchell officially, though he insisted I call him James after our third conversation, wasn't even my assigned physician. He specialized in cardiology, not orthopedics, but his office was down the hall from my room, and he had a habit of stopping by during his breaks. Just checking on the most interesting patient on this floor, he'd say with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. I told myself his visits were simply a nice break from his usual routine of heart patients. I didn't want to read into it, even though my own heart had developed an inconvenient habit of beating faster whenever I heard his voice in the hallway. The hospital itself was a contradiction, sterile yet intimate, clinical yet deeply human. During the day, it pulsed with activity. Nurses rushing between rooms, the squeaking wheels of meal carts, families visiting with flowers and balloons that seemed almost offensively cheerful against the beige walls. But at night, the place transformed. The fluorescent lights dimmed in the hallways, conversations hushed, and time seemed to stretch in strange ways. 1 minute could feel like an hour during those sleepless nights when pain medication wasn't quite doing its job. It was during these quiet hours that I learned the most about James. He worked long shifts that often stretched well into the evening, and sometimes he'd stop by my room before heading home, still in his scrubs, stethoscope hanging around his neck. We'd talk about everything and nothing, his difficult patients, my frustrated clients emailing about projects I couldn't possibly finish from a hospital bed, books we'd both read, movies neither of us had time to see. There was something freeing about these conversations. Perhaps it was the liminal space of the hospital, or maybe it was just that neither of us had the energy for pretense after long, exhausting days. I learned that James had wanted to be a doctor since he was 8 years old, when his grandfather survived a heart attack thanks to a quick-thinking cardiologist. I told him about my childhood dream of designing buildings that would change skylines and make people stop and look up in wonder. We shared stories about our families, his supportive parents who'd helped him through medical school, my more complicated relationship with mine after coming out in college. We developed inside jokes about the hospital food. Is that supposed to be chicken, or is it some new experimental protein? And the daytime soap operas that played endlessly in the patient lounge. I swear Dr. Ramirez looks exactly like the evil twin from yesterday's episode. But there were vulnerable moments too. Late one night, after a particularly difficult day when one of his patients hadn't made it, James sat in the chair beside my bed and just breathed. He didn't speak for nearly 10 minutes, and I didn't push him to. I simply existed alongside his grief, offering the only thing I could presence. And when he finally looked up and whispered, "Thanks for letting me just be here," something shifted between us. The professional veneer cracked, revealing something more human, more raw underneath. I shared my own fears too, not just about recovery, but about what would happen after. Would I be able to return to my job with the same confidence? Would I ever get back on a bicycle again? And the question I didn't voice aloud, would James and I still have any connection once I was discharged, or was our friendship merely a product of proximity and circumstance? It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. I remember because Tuesdays were Italian night in the cafeteria, and James had smuggled me in a real piece of tiramisu from the Italian place across from the hospital. "Hospital pudding is a crime against humanity," he declared, producing the dessert from his bag with a flourish. We'd just finished eating when his pager went off. Emergency in cardiology. He apologized, promised to check in later if he could, and rushed out. The hours ticked by slowly after that. I tried reading, but couldn't focus. Attempted to sleep, but my mind kept wandering. At some point, I must have drifted off because I woke to the soft sound of the door opening around midnight. James stood there, still in his scrubs, looking exhausted but somehow lighter than when he'd left. "Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you," he said, his voice low. "I just wanted to let you know everything turned out okay." The patient stabilized. "You didn't have to come back," I said, even as I felt warmth spreading through my chest at the fact that he had. "I know. He stepped further into the room. My shift ended 2 hours ago. That simple statement hung in the air between us. He had stayed, not because he had to, but because he wanted to see me before going home. The realization made my breath catch slightly. Well, since you're here, I said, trying to keep my voice casual, you might as well tell me about your medical heroics. Did you dramatically yell clear before using the defibrillator? He laughed, settling into the chair beside my bed. Cardiology is much less dramatic than TV would have you believe. Though I did save a life today, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself. His smile faded slightly as he looked at me more intently. How are you feeling? Any pain today? The usual, I shrugged. Nothing I can't handle. Mind if I check? Before I could answer, he was already reaching for his stethoscope. It was a gesture he'd made dozens of times before, a casual check of my vitals, something he did almost absent-mindedly during our conversations. But tonight felt different. You know I'm not here for heart problems, I reminded him as he moved closer. Humor me, he said, his voice softer than usual. It's been a long day. Let me do something simple and straightforward. I nodded, suddenly very aware of my hospital gown, of the stubble on my chin I hadn't bothered to shave that morning, of how vulnerable I felt in that moment. James sat on the edge of the bed, another first, and placed the stethoscope against my chest. I tried to breathe normally, but my heart was betraying me, pounding so loudly I was certain he could hear it even without the instrument. Your heart's racing, he observed, his eyes meeting mine. There was a question there, unspoken but clear. Must be the excitement of having such distinguished medical attention after hours. I attempted to joke, but my voice came out rougher than intended. James didn't move the stethoscope. Alex, he said, my name sounding different somehow in the quiet room. I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do, but I can't seem to stop thinking about it. The monitor beside my bed beeped, marking my increasing heart rate. James glanced at it, then back at me, a small smile playing at his lips. That's quite a reaction to whatever you think I'm about to say. James, I started, not even sure what would come next. He removed the stethoscope, letting it hang around his neck again. I've been trying to keep things professional. Appropriate. You're recovering, and I'm here to help with that. But he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd noticed before. But I find myself looking forward to seeing you more than anyone else in my day. I make excuses to walk past your room. I think about our conversations when I should be focusing on patient charts. My mouth felt dry. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I stayed after my shift ended because I wanted to see you. Not as your doctor. Not even as just a friend. His hand moved closer to mine on the bed, not quite touching. And I'm terrified I'm crossing a line here. The moment stretched between us, filled with possibility and fear in equal measure. I had spent weeks trying not to read into his visits, his attention, the way his eyes sometimes lingered on mine. I had told myself it was professional concern, maybe friendship at most. But now, with his words hanging in the air between us, I couldn't hide from the truth anymore. I had been falling for him too, quietly and completely. You're not crossing a line, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Or if you are, I've been wanting you to cross it for weeks now. His exhale was audible, relief and something else, anticipation, perhaps, evident in the way his shoulders relaxed. Really? I nodded, finding courage in his vulnerability. Really? Though I have to say, this isn't how I imagined this conversation happening. I'm in a hospital gown that doesn't close properly, I haven't showered properly in days, and I'm pretty sure my breath is terrible. James laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Trust me, I've seen and smelled much worse in this hospital. And you? His eyes swept over me in a way that made my skin warm. You look perfect to me. Now I know you're just being nice, I said, but I couldn't help smiling. I'm being honest, he countered, and finally, his hand covered mine. His palm was warm, slightly calloused, and the simple contact sent electricity up my arm. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for weeks. I even practiced a speech in my car yesterday, which is ridiculous considering I regularly tell patients they need life-altering surgeries without stumbling over my words. I'd like to hear this car speech sometime, I said, turning my hand to intertwine our fingers. It was terrible, he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. Lots of medical metaphors. Something about how you've arrested my heart. I'm a walking cliché. That's awful, I laughed. Please tell me there was a line about taking my pulse. Worse. There was definitely something about checking more than your heartbeat. His free hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing lightly over my skin. Which sounds incredibly inappropriate now that I say it out loud. The touch was gentle, questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. Instead, I leaned into it, my eyes closing briefly at the contact. When I opened them again, James was closer, his gaze dropping to my lips. "I really want to kiss you," he murmured. "But I need to know you're sure that this isn't just hospital emotions or gratitude or—" I cut him off by leaning forward and pressing my lips to his. It was a simple kiss, soft and brief, but it sent my heart monitor into a frenzy of beeps that made us both pull back and laugh. "That's going to be a problem," James said, glancing at the monitor with amusement. "Maybe you should disconnect it before a nurse comes running in," I suggested, only half joking. "That would be highly unprofessional," he replied, but his eyes were dancing with mischief. He reached over and silenced the alarm, though the numbers still flashed on the screen. "There. Now we won't cause a hospital-wide emergency." When he kissed me again, it was deeper, more certain. His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair, while mine gripped the front of his scrubs, pulling him closer. It was everything a first kiss should be, tender yet passionate, familiar yet thrillingly new. When we finally separated, both slightly breathless, the monitor showed numbers that would have concerned me if I didn't know exactly what was causing them. "Well," James said, his forehead resting against mine, "I think we can officially say I've checked more than your heartbeat." I groaned, shoving him playfully. "That was terrible. You're lucky you're cute." His smile was radiant. "I'm lucky for a lot of reasons right now." Reality, however, has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. As we sat there, hands still intertwined, the complications of our situation began to filter back into my consciousness. "James, what happens now? I mean, is this even allowed? You're a doctor here." "Technically, I'm not your doctor," he pointed out. "Dr. Rivera is handling your case. I'm just a concerned colleague who happens to visit a lot." "Still," I pressed, "there must be rules about this kind of thing." He sighed, squeezing my hand. "There are ethical considerations, yes, but you're not my patient, and there's no direct conflict of interest. I should probably mention this to my department head, just to be transparent. But Alex," his eyes held mine, serious now, "I'm not worried about hospital policy. I'm more concerned about what you want. This isn't exactly ideal timing. You're still recovering, and I have at least 2 more weeks in this place, followed by months of physical therapy," I finished for him. "I know. It's not the meet cute either of us would have chosen." "I don't know," he mused, thumb tracing patterns on my palm. "There's something to be said for getting all the awkward, vulnerable stuff out of the way first. You've already seen me after a 36-hour shift, and I've seen you in that gown. We're past the stage where we try to impress each other." That startled a laugh out of me. "Is that what we're doing? Skipping straight to the comfortable stage?" "Maybe," he smiled. "Or maybe we're just starting something in the middle instead of the beginning. Is that so bad?" I considered this, looking at our joined hands. "No," I finally said. "It's not bad at all. Unconventional, but then again, so are we." "So we're doing this?" James asked, and beneath the confidence I'd come to associate with him, I heard a note of uncertainty, of hope. "We're doing this," I confirmed. "Though I should warn you, I'm going to be a terrible date for a while. Can't exactly take you dancing with this leg." "I hate dancing anyway," he said, then added with a wink, "and I'm pretty good at finding creative solutions to physical limitations. It's kind of my job." The conversation flowed easily after that, as we discussed the practical aspects of dating while I was still hospitalized, and what would happen after I was discharged. We talked about taking things slowly, about the need for discretion while I was still in the hospital, about our mutual desire for something real and lasting. It was surreal to be having this conversation in a hospital room at 1 in the morning, but it also felt right, somehow honest and stripped of pretense. Eventually, James had to leave. He had another shift starting in just a few hours, and needed at least some sleep. Standing by my bed, he leaned down for one more kiss, this one a promise of more to come. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, his smile tired but genuine. "Try to get some rest." "You too, doctor," I replied, unable to keep the happiness from my voice. Doctor's orders. After he left, I lay awake for a long time, replaying every moment in my mind. The rational part of me knew there would be challenges ahead. Office gossip when people inevitably found out. The potential awkwardness of James running into my other doctors. The difficulty of building a relationship while I was still focused on recovery. But for once, I silenced that practical voice and allowed myself to simply feel the joy of this unexpected connection. The next few weeks transformed my hospital stay completely. James still visited regularly, but now our conversations carried an undercurrent of intimacy that made even the most mundane topics feel significant. We were careful in public, professional nods in the hallway, brief conversations that wouldn't raise eyebrows. But in the privacy of my room, especially during those quiet evening hours, we were building something beautiful. He brought me books he thought I'd enjoy, sneaked in decent coffee from the cafe across the street, and once, memorably, orchestrated a date night complete with contraband takeout and a movie on his tablet. We talked about everything: his difficult childhood in a small town where he'd never quite fit in, my complicated relationship with my parents who accepted my sexuality but never seemed comfortable discussing it, our dreams for the future, our fears about the present. There were challenges, of course. A nurse once walked in while we were holding hands, and though she didn't comment, her raised eyebrow spoke volumes. James had an awkward conversation with his department head, who reminded him about professional boundaries but ultimately acknowledged there was no technical violation of hospital policy. And I struggled with feelings of dependency, hating that our early relationship was so one-sided in terms of who could do what for whom. "I want to take you on a real date," I complained one evening, frustrated by my limitations. "I want to cook you dinner or take you to a movie or, I don't know, anything that doesn't involve me lying in this bed while you do all the work." James, who had been reading patient charts while sitting beside me, looked up with a thoughtful expression. "You know what I like about our situation? There's no performative dating ritual. We're getting to know each other in the most authentic way possible. You're seeing me exhausted after difficult shifts. I'm seeing you dealing with pain and frustration. We're skipping the part where we pretend to be our best selves and going straight to reality." Put that way, it made sense. Still, I couldn't help adding, "I'm still taking you on a proper date once I'm out of here. With candles and everything." "I'll hold you to that," he smiled, returning to his charts. As my discharge date approached, a new anxiety emerged. Would what we had built within these hospital walls translate to the outside world? Without the enforced proximity, the intensity of the environment, would our connection remain as strong? The night before I was set to leave, James came to my room after his shift ended. He seemed uncharacteristically nervous, fidgeting with his stethoscope as he sat beside my bed. "Everything okay?" I asked, reaching for his hand. "Yes. No. I don't know." He took a deep breath. "Tomorrow you're leaving, and I'm thrilled about that. Your recovery has been amazing, and you deserve to get back to your life. But I'm also—" He hesitated, searching for words. "Scared," I offered. He nodded. "Terrified, actually. What if what we have only works here? What if once you're back in your apartment, back to your normal life, you realize this was just some weird hospital romance that doesn't make sense in the real world?" I squeezed his hand. "James, look at me." When he did, I continued, "Do you really think what I feel for you is just because you bring me contraband desserts and check my heartbeat in a way that makes it race?" A small smile flickered across his face. "When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous." "It is ridiculous," I agreed. "What we have isn't about this place. It's about who we are together, how we talk, how we understand each other. That's not going to disappear when I walk out those doors tomorrow." "You're right," he said, bringing my hand to his lips. "I know you're right. I've never felt this way before, and the thought of losing it is scary." "Then don't lose it," I said simply. "Come over tomorrow night after your shift. I'll order takeout since I can't cook yet, and we'll have our first date outside these walls. And then we'll have another and another for as long as we both want to." His smile widened. "That sounds perfect." The next day, as a nurse wheeled me to the hospital entrance where my friend waited to drive me home, James was nowhere to be seen. I understood. He was working, and we'd said our temporary goodbyes the night before, but I couldn't help feeling a pang of disappointment. Then, just as we reached the sliding doors, I heard rapid footsteps behind us. James appeared, slightly out of breath, his white coat flapping. "Alex, wait." He hurried to my side, ignoring the curious looks from the nurse and the people in the lobby. Leaning down, he pressed something into my hand, a small envelope. "Open it when you get home," he whispered, then straightened up, composing his features into a professional smile. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Reeves. Follow your discharge instructions carefully." I nodded, playing along. "Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, for everything." It wasn't until I was settled in my apartment, finally alone after my friend had helped me get situated, that I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a small key. "Alex," the note read, "this is the key to my apartment. I know it's fast, and maybe a little crazy, but nothing about us has been conventional from the start. I don't expect you to use it right away, or ever if you're not comfortable. But I wanted you to have it as a promise. My door is always open to you, whenever you're ready. Also, check your phone. James? As if on cue, my phone chimed with a text message. It was from James, a number I programmed into my phone weeks ago but had never texted with hospital Wi-Fi being what it was. I checked my schedule. The message read, "I'm off this weekend. If you're feeling up to it, I thought maybe we could have that proper date you promised. I even bought candles." I smiled, clutching the key in one hand and my phone in the other. Whatever challenges lay ahead, my continued recovery, navigating a relationship with our complicated schedules, the inevitable raised eyebrows from colleagues who would eventually figure us out, I knew we would face them together. I texted back, "It's a date." "And James? Bring your stethoscope. I might need you to check more than my heartbeat again." His response came seconds later, very unprofessional, "Mr. Reeves." I approved completely. As I settled back against my pillows, I couldn't help thinking about how sometimes the worst moments in our lives, like a terrible accident that lands us in the hospital, can lead to the best beginnings. My recovery was far from over, but with James by my side, I knew my heart, at least, was in excellent hands. Total_char_count, 17,736.